Well, good morning. As you can see, Rocky's asleep on his royal pillow again in his observation deck, where he can watch. He has a panoramic view of his territory. I was just thinking of another story from when I worked in the museum. There was a guy that I used to work with. His name was John. I'm not going to say his last name, but his first name was John. I worked with a couple of guys named John, actually, in the time I was there. But this particular guy, he was quite a character. Well, they were both characters. But this one guy, anyway, we were just young at the time, all of us were, you know. Anyway, in the summertime, during the tourist season, we were working as guides in the museum. And so we would sit on the old antique chairs near to the front door, and when people came in, we'd greet them and we'd take them on the tours and so on, get them to sign the guest book and on like that, to pay the admission fee, which I think was $1 at that time. This is back in 1984, 85, in there. Anyway, one of the things John would do is he'd sit there and he'd quietly sing, and he'd sing a sea chanty, and it sounded like some music you'd hear back in the 1800s, an old sea chanty type song. But he'd sing it just under his breath, and you couldn't make out the words very easily unless you listened really closely. And it was a kind of a running joke. And, people would come in there and they'd be so impressed to hear him singing this thing. Oh, isn't that nice? He's singing an old-fashioned song, and everything. But if you listen to the words, the whole thing was filthy. It was just filthy dirty, but nobody would know unless they stood there and really listened. They'd never know. And it was a little thing, I think that was his way of kind of getting away with something, pulling a fast one on the people and getting away with it. Anyway, I remember one of the lyrics to this song, and if anybody's offended by dirty stuff or whatever, you might want to tune out now. I'll try to PG-13 it as much as I can. But basically, one of the lyrics to the song, just to give you an idea, was, "The dirty little cabin boy, the ruddy little nipper, filled his," you can guess the word, "with fiberglass and circumcised the skipper." That was one of the dirty little cabin boy, the ruddy little nipper, filled his you-know-what with fiberglass and circumcised the skipper. That was one of his, that was just one of the lyrics to this song anyway, and he'd sit there and he'd sing that. It just barely audible, just under his breath a little bit, and people would come in and they'd have no idea, what he was actually singing, but it sounded good if you didn't listen, Anyway, that's just a fun